Greetings, superior beings, greetings, supreme being. Welcome to Universal Peace Television. Universal Peace Television, the channel BC Hoffman, double F, double N on YouTube. So this broadcast is about Cardinal Spellman, or let's immediately go to the display capture. There it is. 0 drop frames. This should show this. Okay. Cardinal George Pell, not Spellman, raped. Cardinal George Pell raped little boys, sexual abuse charges. So this broadcast is because I ran into another article that disappeared of internet, and it's still in Google's cache, web cache, Google. You can reach that by clicking on that little arrow to the right on the Google search engine. Then you can find cached pages. You don't always have those, but you can also use cachedpages.com if the page has disappeared and it may be in the Wayback Machine. It may still be logged somewhere on the internet. So it's about Cardinal Pell. And it's possible that these people have tortured my mother to death. Switch back to the camera. Okay. Yeah, so the directed energy weapon torture is almost never talked about. And that is because they can torture people severely, and usually they control them with synthetic telepathy, brain control, mind control. So their neural network can simulate any human. That's Project Immortality. And these Jesuits have also demolished the WTC, and they've tortured 50 million innocent people to death in their Inquisition. They're famous for the pedophilia. They also did Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and the Jesuit Holocaust, First and Second World War. So they were expelled from more than 80 countries, and also Jews were expelled. I've covered this in my previous broadcast as well. So that's one of the reasons I'm doing this broadcast. And I doubt if they will get convicted, because they control the judges with directed energy weapons, and the lawyers as well, and with torture. So I doubt if justice will be done in this case, but I cover it anyway here on Universal Peace Tube. So let's first read some intel that I've collected, or basically it's information from the New York Times and some other people that wrote about it. So I'll try to stay on topic, at least in the beginning. Okay, let's do this.
Cardinal George Pell returns to Australia to face historical sex abuse charges. Then allegations surfaced that he had sexually abused minors himself, beginning early in his priesthood and continuing until he became Archbishop of Melbourne. SMH.com.au The Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse has previously said that from 1980 to 2015, more than 4,000 Australians made allegations of child sexual abuse involving Catholic institutions, and that 7% of Catholic priests were accused of sexually abusing children from 1950 to 2010. New York Times There might be up to 10 alleged victims, Australian news website news.com.au reports, adding that they were minors at the time of the alleged assaults and are now aged from their late 20s to their early 50s. The allegations are believed to stretch from the time that Pell was a priest in the Australian town of Ballarat to when he was Archbishop of Melbourne. It is alleged that the Cardinal groomed boys at a swimming pool in Ballarat in the 1970s and committed sexual assaults at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Melbourne, according to The Australian. Since 2014, Pell has lived in the Vatican. Zerohenge.com, Cardinal George Pell raped little boys, sexual abuse charges.
So if he's in that circle of 9 or whatever, I think that at the moment, superior, they call it superior general of the Jesuits, the leader of the Jesuits at the moment is Adolfo Nicholas, and the person that ordered the attack on the WTC was Peter Hans Kolvenbach. According to what's his name? I'm also trying to turn on my camera. Okay. According to Eric John Phelps, controlled opposition, another flat earther, and we all know the earth is cubical, so I don't buy their lie. That the earth is flat, I mean, it's my joke, of course. The earth is spherical in reality, which is easy to prove by overlooking a bay, and then the buildings on the other end of the bay are partially underwater because of the earth's curvature, so you don't have to travel around the world or to Antarctica where they keep their flying saucers. That's why people need a permit if they want to go to Antarctica. So that was the first thing, and then we can read that document that disappeared off the internet, because I was searching what was he accused of exactly, and all these articles mention that he denied the allegations, but what the allegations were exactly, it's either very vague in one little sentence or one little piece of the article, or perhaps also in one article there were no allegations. The allegations were not mentioned or described at all. So many people don't dare talk about their synthetic telepathy, brain control, and other things, directed energy weapon torture, because they're scared of being tortured even more or even murdered. With directed energy weapons they can give heart attacks and brain bleedings, etc. And they've tortured 50 million people to death, so they definitely know how to torture people to death. How to push people's buttons, as they say. Now, the article, which appeared on independentaustralia.net. This is from 19th of August 2015. So let's see what we can find.
The UX stops with Cardinal George Pell, Tess Lawrence, August 19, 2015, 9 p.m. 76 Crime Religion Children 048670, image by John Graham, at John Graham Art. Cardinal Pell has yet to give evidence to the Royal Commission into Child Abuse in Ballarat, but his spectre looms large over proceedings, writes contributing editor-at-large Tess Lawrence. The Fuck Stops with Cardinal George Pell, Part 1. Cardinal George Pell, the priest he fuck stops with you. It appears some of your fellow brethren agree. Pell and his advisors have long been in acute damage control since his personal testimony to the Victorian Parliamentary Inquiry into Child Abuse.
I want to add that the police and the judges, etc., cannot do anything about directed energy weapon torture, and if you attempt to press charges of directed energy weapon torture, then they label you insane, psychotic, and it's like they have a gun pressed to their heads from the NSA, MI5, whoever controls that synthetic telepathy machine. And of course they brain control people with it, so they let people ridicule the idea, they ridicule you basically if you talk about this quite often. That's the case because many people are brain controlled. They were hypnotized. If they were hypnotized successfully, they don't remember it, and also they're controlled with Pavlovian programming, with torture when they don't do what the perpetrators want them to. And then you have the illegal voice to skull messages, the illegal network, the illegal cancer car horn honking stalkers, etc. That's all worldwide system, and their cancer chemtrails, of course. Project Cloverleaf, which started in 1998, before 98, you can see on pictures and video that there were no long lines in the sky, so these are not cancer contrails, which is what some people like to pretend. And it's the CIA's evergreen heir, so they are in control of the alphabet agencies and their military order, posing as a religious order, famous for the pedophilia. And now we can continue the article. So what to do? You'd have to figure it out for yourself. One thing is not mentioning certain names. If you attempt to press charges against one of them, then they may use their directed energy weapons. It can also be someone working for or with these Jesuits on depopulating the earth. I've attempted to press charges. The police illegally refused me my right to press charges of incitement to commit genocide against these people. I've listed in my previous broadcast as well. So they are accomplices, but in reality you could argue they are not, because it's like having a gun pressed to your head. They can kill people remotely and also brain control them, with synthetictelepathy.com as explained in the Mijdrecht patent. We continue the article.
By religious and other organizations called by then Premier Liberal Ted Bale on April 17, 2012. The inquiry was prompted by persistent media reports, the documented suicides of victims, and decades-long courageous advocacy by victims, survivors, families, support groups and champion lawyers, including Dr. Vivian Waller. It was there that Bell's infamous hardcore arrogance and sociopathic lack of compassion was laid bare to the general public and amateur and professional psychologist alike. The Cardinal's continual obfuscation and impatience at having his auteur status and culpability challenged and questioned by representatives of the state on behalf of the people gave us a glimpse of the bad, the worse, and the festering ugliness behind the confessional's iron curtain. We bore witness to how delusions of ruling heavenly kingdoms were indivisible from delusions of holding dominion over earthly ones. This inquiry publicly eviscerated from dank cloisters the extent of industrial-strength child sex abuse perpetrated by the clergy and the squalid depravity of predatory priests, brothers and lay employees. The live broadcasts exposed the networks of these career pedophiles, some of whom, despite criminal convictions and known pedophilic proclivities, were harbored and given sanctuary within the bosom of the male-dominated and patriarchal club that hides behind the sly matronly sobriquet of Mother Church. Motherfuckers indeed, in the literal sense of the rapster's words. These perpetrators were indisputably aided and abetted by an obliging Catholic hierarchy, some of their number even colluding and active participants in these heinous crimes, doing to the least of us as to Jesus, fucking him. The revelations shocked the wider community and perhaps for the first time in Australia shone a national spotlight on the semen-soiled collective groin and stained cassocks of these serial abusers. The inquiry was to precipitate the current National Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse announced by then Labour Prime Minister Julia Gillard on November 12 the same year, 48 hours after New South Wales announced its own inquiry. For the latter, credit must be given to the heroic efforts of whistleblower Detective Chief Inspector Peter Fox and former nurse-turned-journalist, Joanne McCarthy of the Newcastle Herald, who went on to win the 2013 Gold Walkie Award for her challenging and ongoing investigations. Tribute must be paid to McCarthy's steadfast editor, Chad Watson. Lesser editors have buckled under lesser pressure. Their work, combined with Fox's revelations on ABC's Lateline, did much to contribute to the swelling national juggernaut about these squalid crimes, their horrendous consequences, and the widespread damage and injury inflicted upon Australian society, by any definition, including that of sexual war crimes, like so many little ones abused within institutions, including wards of the state. Some of these children were hostage to their circumstances and were little more than sex slaves, prisoners. For them, there was nowhere to run or hide. Interviewed by Tony Jones on November 8, 2012, Fox thankfully disposed of irritating euphemisms. From Lateline's transcript. Tony Jones, Let's start with how you got so frustrated and angry that you were publicly challenging the NSW Premier. Now your letter to Premier O'Farrell begins like this. I've investigated so many sexual assaults in 30 years of policing that I've lost count. I've seen the worst society can dredge up, particularly the evil of pedophilia within the Catholic Church. What is the worst of it, Peter Fox? Oh, Tony, I think most people would be absolutely crumpled up in tears to hear it. Just some examples of what I've sat and listened to is that one young boy at the hands of pedophile priest James Fletcher. He was 12 years of age when the priest drove to a secluded park outside of Maitland. He told the boy to remove his pants and the boy was totally unaware of what was going on and quite embarrassed, but that particular priest anally penetrated him. The boy wasn't aware at that stage that his anus had been torn and he started bleeding. He was screaming in agony on the seat and his knuckles were turning white. And as the priest continued to thrust while he screamed, he said he focused on the street Christopher's cross on the dashboard and watched it swaying back and forward to try and take his focus off the pain. The priest never relented at any stage during that and, even after the act was completed, he was totally uncaring for the child and simply sat back in the driver's seat and had a cigarette while he, the boy, finished sobbing. The day after Fox's late-line appearance, then NSW Liberal Premier Barry O'Farrell was shamed into announcing his special commission of inquiry into Fox's allegations, strangely confining it to the Hunter Valley. It was not the Royal Commission Fox had called for in his open letter to the Premier published in the Newcastle Herald. If child sex abuse were an Olympic sport, and certainly for some the pursuit of young flesh was indeed sport, then the Catholic Church's elite pedophile God Squad would be gold medalists in the Hall of Infamy. Thousands upon thousands of children in Australia alone have been sacrificed on the altar of pedophilia in the name of their blasphemed God, with priests and others doing to the least of our little children what they were doing unto Jesus, fucking him. Some perpetrators used the church's altar itself upon which to rape their defenseless victims. Conduct of pedophile priests akin to satanic cults. Published and other testimonies of victims show the behavior and pattern of perpetrators to be more akin to the activities of satanic cults than a church concerned with the pastoral care and guardianship of the weakest of its flock. This is a dark world where the meekest did not inherit the earth but were forced to eat its filth, to suck the cocks of priests and brothers, to masturbate them and to endure having their anuses ripped, ruptured and bloodied from penetration by adult humans and inanimate objects, including the crucifix. Pins and fists were used to rape and forever nail child victims to an invisible but burdensome cross many still carry upon their older shoulders. We ought never to temper language or to dilute the brutal reality of the abuse. To do so would be an insult to those victims, survivors who are living and to those who are now dead, and to those who are the walking dead as one victim described himself to me. Church Omerta and Pedophile Incorporated flouting the law. For too long, the sinister code of religious omerta has been the rule of law. The Church's corrupt coven of Pedophiles Incorporated, flouting and ignoring the rule of law. And what of those victims who have suicided? What of a blistering tragedy of regional suicide clusters, such as that in the Ballarat region, perhaps Australia's suicide capital, of victims of the Catholic Church's endemic pedophilia? What of families and friends? Surely we ought not to countenance the victim-blaming subtlety of the oft-used phrase that these victims took their own lives. They did not. Their lives were taken from them. Arguably, they were murdered by default by their perpetrators, manslaughtered at the least, including by those who knew of the abuse and the abusers but kept silent and did nothing. Accessories before and after the facts. Inner child of victims imprisoned like vanishing when, some victims, survivors are unable to extricate themselves or their psyches from the injurious horrors of the ever-present lurking past, their inner child imprisoned inside them like a vanishing twin forever trapped within them. Cardinal Pell has yet to give further testimony to this royal commission, but at its Ballarat sitting in May, the explosive and damaging video appearance from Ararat prison, of incarcerated serial paedophile priest and former Pell housemate, Gerald Francis Ridsdale, was a game-changer in the legal obscuring of liturgical vestments. Under questioning, Ridsdale did little to assuage widespread and legitimate criticism of Pell's leadership and instead of exonerating Pell, further muddied the extent of his culpability. Hear no evil. Father Gerald Ridsdale, still a priest, fingers his ear whilst giving evidence to the Royal Commission by video from Mijdrecht prison. Image via news.com.au. Ridsdale's evidence fails to exclude Pell's presence during rape. Ridsdale's well-staged appearance and selective memory stopped well short of excluding Pell's presence when Ridsdale was raping a child in his, Ridsdale's, bedroom. In the 70s, Pell and Ridsdale both had rooms at St. Alypius Presbytery in Ballarat. We should remain mindful that among Ridsdale's victims was a 4-year-old. He had long dispensed with the nuisance of moral boundaries. His own nephew David Ridsdale told the Royal Commission he was regularly sexually abused by his uncle Father Gerald Ridsdale and that, in 1993, he told George Pell about the abuse. David Ridsdale alleges Pell tried to bribe him to keep quiet about the abuse. This from the ABC's report. I remember with clarity the last 3 lines we spoke together. Me, excuse me, George, what the fuck are you talking about, George? I want to know what it will take to keep you quiet. Me, fuck you, George, and everything you stand for. Gerald Ridsdale has a frightening history of betraying children, injuring them physically and mentally, causing the deaths and suicides of some of his many hundreds of victims. Ridsdale's evidence to the Royal Commission left a sinkhole filled with doubt and contradictory evidence, especially about then priest, now Cardinal, George Pell. He left little doubt about the complicity and culpability of the then Bishop of Ballarat Ronald Mulcairns, who has the ignominious glory of presiding over what might prove to be per capita, the Catholic Church's sex abuse capital, not only of Australia, but of the world. Ridsdale dumped Pell and Mulcairns right into sex abuse cesspool. Ridsdale's shrewdly elastic memory expanded just enough to forever tightly bind together Pell and Mulcairns as key actors in any evidentiary documentation of the Church's propensity for the sexual abusing of children. For decades, Pell has unsuccessfully tried to rid himself of the public turbulence of pedophile priests and brothers, and to extricate himself from any allegations that he not only knew what was going on, and did nothing to facilitate perpetrators to be moved to another parish. Pell has also had to withstand allegations that he, too, was a perpetrator. The Catholic Church even paid for an inquiry into the allegations. Ridsdale and Pell said to have had massive falling out feels he has been deserted by Church and Pell, on condition of anonymity. A Church insider has told Independent Australia that Ridsdale and Pell have had an acrimonious falling out. Neither myself nor Independent Australia make any imputation whatever about Cardinal Pell and or if he witnessed Ridsdale raping a child in a room in the premises they shared. We have been informed that Ridsdale, whose prowess as an arch-manipulator and groomer is now a matter of public record, is angry that he has been deserted by the Catholic Church, and feels abandoned by Pell, who in 1993 notoriously accompanied his one-time friend and flatmate to court, where Ridsdale pleaded guilty to a litany of indecent assault charges. Ridsdale accepts victim's evidence another priest saw him rape her. If Ridsdale's intentions and answers to the Royal Commission were to ensure Pell was recalled to give evidence to clarify matters, then he succeeded. In The Age on May 28, Jane Lee and Ronnie Spooner wrote, "Another priest was present when Gerald Ridsdale raped a child in his bedroom in a house he shared with other priests, including George Pell. A Royal Commission has heard." Ridsdale told the Royal Commission he could not remember who the priest was. Counsel assisting the Commission, Gail Furness, SC, asked Ridsdale about his abuse of a child in his bedroom at St. Alypius Presbytery, where he lived with George Pell in the early 1970s. Ridsdale has accepted that he lived with Pell at the time, but has told the Commission he cannot remember having any dealings with him.
So here we can also read on zerohedge.com. According to the investigation, since the 1950s, some 7% of priests in the country were alleged perpetrators. The Commission also said that since the 1980s the Catholic Church has paid over 200 million to victims of alleged sex abuse committed by priests in Australia over decades. That's in the Zero Hedge article I was trying to find. What commission? That's the. Let's see. The Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse, I guess. So then we can continue the article.
Between 1972 and 1973, he abused a girl after she followed him into his bedroom to see his rock collection. The girl believed that there was another priest there for a short time while Ridsdale sexually abused her, but did not intervene. I accept that's what she believed, Ridsdale said. Counsel assisting the commission said, "Can you help us with who is the priest?" "I don't know, because I've said I don't know who the other priests were there, living at the presbytery, at the same time, except George Pell." Gerald Ridsdale hides behind sunglasses whilst, in 1993, barefaced mate George Pell accompanies his one-time flatmate to court. When Ridsdale pleaded guilty to a litany of indecent assault charges, victims and family members were understandably angry when this photo appeared, saying that Pell never accompanied any of them to court. The second stage of the Ballarat sittings are scheduled to start on 23 November in Melbourne, causing outrage among victims, survivors and hundreds of other interested parties who want Pell and Mulkerns to give evidence in Ballarat. Victoria's Labour Premier Daniel Andrews has lent his support to the Ballarat sittings being resumed in that city, from AP, July 8, 2015. "I'm confident that the Royal Commission will do the right thing and come and hear evidence that is directly relevant to the people of Ballarat in that great city." The Premier said it was respectful and appropriate to hear at least the most high-profile witnesses in Ballarat, the people of Ballarat, survivors and their families, those who've spent so much time dealing with the grief and the pain and the loss of this terrible abuse. "I think they're entitled to hear evidence in their own local area," he said. Of course, the Royal Commission should reconvene in Ballarat for these particular case studies. To do otherwise could forever be seen as judicial cowardice and merely capitulating to the convenience of the self-important Pell and Mulkerns, who, we might suppose, would rather give testimony far from the scene of the crimes perpetrated by the likes of Gerald Francis Ridsdale and others. If anyone reading this needs help, or anyone you know does, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14, contact the Royal Commission on 1-800-099-340 or email contact@childabuseroyalcommission.gov.au. Disclosure: Tess Lawrence has worked for the Christian Brothers. The John Graham feature art used in the piece may be purchased from the eStore. Creative Commons license. This work is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 3.0 Australia license. Monthly donation frequency amount $, single donation amount $. Be good. June 29, 2017, breaking news, Cardinal Pell charged with multiple child sex assaults. 76 comments. Demon dead, 2 years ago. Justice will not happen with a scoffed. Abbott is complicit. 7. Reply, share, avatar. Tess Lawrence. Demon dead, 2 years ago. Dear Demon Ted, thanks for your comment, and there is at least some small justice in victims, survivors being free to tell the world about their horrendous experiences. Hopefully more perpetrators will be called to account for their crimes. 5. Reply, share, avatar. Moro. Demon Ted, 2 years ago. Most definitively, but in Australia pedophiles and people with mental slavery disorders are the majority, so don't expect democracy to help us out. The abuse, burning churches is not permitted and is highly negligent. It's still possible, but I don't recommend it. We need the cops on our side and less churches. Reply, share, avatar. Crip 0, 2 years ago. In November 2012, Prime Minister Julia Gillard announced the creation of a National Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Instances of Child Sexual Abuse. Thank you, Julia Gillard. If Julia Gillard had not established that royal commission, does anyone believe that one would have been established during the 2 years of the Abbott LNP government? 7. Reply, share, avatar, 42 long crypt 0, 2 years ago, certainly not, they never mention it. 4. Reply, share, avatar Romax, 2 years ago, you give the Smellerfell too much of a belief in God, this man just uses the trappings to his own advantage, nothing more. Reply, share, avatar, Tess Lawrence Romax, 2 years ago, dear Romax, there is no doubt, in many minds, of the veracity of your latter sentence, as for the former. Reply, share, avatar, Rodmax Tess Lawrence, 2 years ago, charades. Reply, share, avatar, this comment was deleted, avatar, Matt in the box guest, 2 years ago, you were in hospital and you had a medical recovery, and instead of attributing it to the care of the medical staff and the effectiveness of the medications, you attribute your recovery to a priestly visitor. I suggest an apology is in order to the medical staff and the hospital. Stay well, mate, but please stay honest in reality. Let the baying media and the knitting gallery do its job of providing accountability for the endless tales of woe that the Church's victims want some justice for and recognition of the earthly crimes of the Heavenly Fathers and all that. 2. Reply, share, avatar, this comment was deleted, avatar, Matt in the box guest, 2 years ago, accountability, for sins, in the real world, not in a fictional heaven, oh shine the light brother, hallelujah, thank goodness for civil and criminal law, they outrank church law, hallelujah. 1. Reply, share, avatar Leong guest, 2 years ago, at Father George, aka https://discs.com/by/disc. Your non-transparency worries me. God never intended that for you or other priestly posters, citing your near-death experience with the docs and the issue of compassion. If you are truly a priest, you should repent privately to God. It is not up to you to judge. A doctor can still be compassionate in the face of approaching death. I would suggest that your doctors may have got it wrong. Luckily for you, old Tess, the evil socio-psychopathic network infiltrates many spheres of life including Australian healthcare and systematic bullying, thieving and corruption. 4. Reply, share, avatar, Rustile Leong, 2 years ago, not to mention, politics, the judiciary, the finance sector and mainstream media. Well said Leong. 2. Reply, share, avatar, this comment was deleted, avatar, Matt in the box guest, 2 years ago, are you for real? You're stepping way over a line of grace and humility that your profession supposedly represents. You sound bitter, resentful. Kamakovic Tess Lawrence, 2 years ago, even if he is a real priest he is showing as little compassion as Pell and the rest of those who stood by watching, participating in terrible abuse of the very ones who trusted them the most, innocent children. In my opinion he is no better than the rest, including and especially Pell. Marie Tess Lawrence, 2 years ago. Hi Tess, great article. For those who defend the Catholic Church and say oh it's only a minority, or words to that effect, reminds me of a scene in the Irish comedy Father Ted. The parish priest in the program was defending the church against pedophile priests by saying we're not all like that. Say there are 200 million priests in the world and only 5% of them are pedophiles, that's still only 10 million, anyway. Keep up the good work and expose these evil bastards. Tess Lawrence Marie, 2 years ago. Day Marie, what a quote, what a clever scriptwriter, shades of yes minister, thank you so much for your encouragement. Personally, I know of many victims who have not come forward and I am not alone. Colleen left a comment about her own brother. Of course, not every priest is a pedophile and not every pedophile is a priest, but the revelations of the various inquiries and the Royal Commission indicate that in institutions, including government ones, Such abuse was not only common, but known about, including in some instances, the wider community. That means us. Reply, share, avatar, Marie Tess Lawrence, 2 years ago. Hi Tess, thanks for your reply. Smiley. Yes, I thought the Father Ted quote was so true and very funny. Although the reality of the abuse is anything but. I'm an atheist but was baptized and raised RC, and although I don't know any abuse victims personally, I fully support any efforts made to bring child abusers to justice and to reach out to any person who has suffered such trauma at the hands of these perverted evildoers. Keep up the good work Tess. 1. Reply. Share, avatar Crypt 0 Tess Lawrence, 2 years ago. Maybe or maybe not, is Father John George a fair dinkum droll, or just a common Norgarden type apologist for the atrocities committed by the RC Church over centuries? To learn more, read In God's Name, written by David Yallop. This book was written before the pedophilia thing hit the headlines, but gives a very revealing insight into the murder of Pope John Paul I, and the types who frequent the Vatican.
So I've been told they have a satanic inner core, and get the camera on. Okay. There was something I wanted to say, not remembering it yet. Well, I have to go shopping. Let's see. I'm not recalling it. Probably I've covered it in my previous broadcasts already. I think they've been experimenting with erasing memory selectively, and so synthetic telepathy is not to be underestimated, but we can always think of the opposite or the next idea. They can also control emotions with it, make people cry or make people happy, orgasms, etc. They can control it to a great extent with synthetic telepathy. Perhaps if I turn on the text again. Well, perhaps it wasn't important. If it's important, I can mention it in my next broadcast. So yeah, I hope these perpetrators are caught that have tortured me and that have murdered my mother. And it's probably done with their FIPA array in Parker Flat, Alaska. And previous popes were also involved in cannibalism. They have to eat an infant to become initiated as pope, actually. And Kevin Annett is a fake priest with a fake court-controlled opposition. But Julia Gillard is not Catholic, I think. I saw this article. Oh yeah, I've also exposed the abomination that is religion in my broadcast. That's what I wanted to say, to hook into this piece on which I found with Google. New Prime Minister Julia Gillard offers rule without religion. I don't know if that's the same Julia Gillard or Gillard. So I'm for getting rid of religion through education. The Bible is a collection of plagiarized myths rolled into monotheism, and that proves that God does not exist. It's also the Zeitgeist documentary. Though you could argue there might be some other deity that nobody knows about or wrote about. But most of these religions advocate killing of people of another religion that don't want to convert to, for example, the Muslim faith or to the Judaism. Killing people that tell you to, or try to entice you to worship other gods that you have not known. That's in the Bible, etc. So I've exposed it in previous broadcasts separately, so I advise you all to watch them, especially about important subjects like preventing the two-state solution world war. And then I can do that thing again. So often I try to bring the most important info. I might talk about some other things in the rest of this broadcast. And lately I've been uploading panorama videos to YouTube, which are very nice, of Scheveningen, for example, the Dutch beach, the biggest pier in the Netherlands. And they now have bungee jumping, upsilon, and they're using these hybrid insect microelectromechanical systems on me, so they can attack my throat so that my voice fades. And they're really satanic pedophiles, cannibals, homo pedo necro cannibals, and they've tortured my mother to death. They want to depopulate Earth to 500 million total global population. So let's hear what Donald Trump has to say about all this.
universalpeace.jimdo.com.
Universal peace. Now, this is Donald Trump period a two-state solution world by any means necessary, including the two-state solution agreement that the allies of Israel and Palestine may not intervene if they go to war with each other to period a two-state solution world. Universal peace. Now, peace to you, Rick. Thank you for your idea for universal peace. Universal peace. Now, the government is criminal, okay?
The CDC did.
Don't let them touch you!
Grab him by the pussy. Master. Nothing. I have counting my money. I hate it. Only I want counting my money. Are sure that where all day. USA Today, 1991. You're going to have a deportation force, and you're going to do it humanely, and you're going to have a deportation force. We gotta go, and we gotta knock the shit out of these people. Get a walk and able food, and you cannot survive a nuclear event. Them without the more there of the better.
Out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Paid a beat.
Okay. I forgot to turn the mic off, but it does sound cool, an echo on it. So that's it for this broadcast for Universal Peace Television. I hope you all enjoyed that, and I temporarily halt this broadcast for universal peace. Still the peace sign. If it's satanic, it doesn't matter. Most people know this means peace. So that means the end of all war and preventing a world war, to create a perfect society and control the 23 factors that control aging. Absence of war in the universe, universal peace.